varied individual, which is fantastic. Marlies, can you tell my audience about yourself and about what you do?
I guess, and I kind of say I do it all, but it all has a string through it. I'm a high school teacher. I work with ninth graders. I'm a ordained minister. I work with women in our church. I'm also a life coach and a motivational speaker. And it's kind of ironic when you said you work with women. Well, your wife works with women, because that's how I got my start with Project Woman and being vocal about my history and using it in places like the legislature to ask for more funding by giving them a face to the story. You know, we need more money and this is why.
That makes sense. You know, that's one of the things that nonprofits, because a lot of people call them charities, and they're not. They're nonprofits, which makes it a little bit more palatable. A lot of people don't understand on that end that there's people behind them, if that makes sense. It looks like a big company, but nonprofits aren't necessarily that. It might look big and fancy from the outside, but the work that many of them are doing in the back end, and churches and that type of thing, is absolutely astounding in helping our community. One of the statistics that my wife taught me is that for every grade you go to school, you earn basically an extra $1,000 per year in income. So that might not sound like much, but it changes a person's life drastically with that little amount. But anyway, back to you. I apologize for interrupting. This is kind of a passionate thing for me because my wife does work in that area as well. So I want to talk to you about your coaching and your speaking. What type of speaking do you do specifically? And can you give us a little excerpt of what it would be like to have you as a speaker?
Okay. I speak, I go into women's shelters. I've gone into recovery areas where, you know, like you said, they're very secretive as far as who can get in. I've also went into high schools and talked to girl groups. I went into several universities and talked about surviving and understanding that it wasn't you. It was all of the other things that came together and made that event. With adults, I usually focus on a talk that I call From Tragedy to Triumph, and I deal with the issues of what it takes to heal, that you've got to forgive. You've got to understand that it's not about you. That yes, you were assaulted. Yes, your boundaries were violated. But that speaks more about the individual than it does about you. It wasn't what you were wearing. It wasn't what you were saying. It was all about what was going on in their head at the time. Go ahead.
That's something that most people don't, not most people, but there's a stigma to being a victim. And there's sometimes a stigma to speaking out about what happened. And that just shouldn't be the case. The fact is, if a person's assaulted or hurt in any way, it's not their fault. It's crazy what some people think, oh, you shouldn't wear this, or you shouldn't go there, or you shouldn't do this. That's nuts. That's not what freedom and being a person in our society is about, right? We're supposed to be able to do things in a safe manner. We're supposed to take care of each other too, not hurt each other. So can you tell me a little bit about, I'm sorry, I can't talk and my brain went blank there for a second. Can you tell me a little bit about how a person can actually get through that process of understanding that it's not their fault, but the next step is their fault, and how they choose to deal with it? Does that make sense?
Yes. And I talk a lot about sharing your story, and that you got to what I call rip the bandage off. You know, as long as that story is covered up and it remains hid, it never heals. But you have to have enough courage to pull the bandage off and understand that there are some hairs and some other stuff is going to get caught up when you pull it off. But be willing to pull it off anyway. Understand, unfortunately, because of the society we live in, you might pull it off and expect that the person you share it with will respond to you in a very compassionate and very understanding way, and they don't. You have to be willing to keep that bandage off and keep sharing it and keep allowing that you're regaining your voice in that process, and not covering it back up because, you know, I told a friend and they didn't respond the way I wanted them to, or they blamed me, or I felt like they were blaming me. So I cover it back up and I hide it, because that hiding it and covering that causes it to become infected and it just eats away at you. So as long as air is allowed to get to it, it may hurt a little, but it's healing. And nobody gets to dictate that process, how long it takes. It's not going to be overnight.
This reminds me of, you know, it's not the same thing, but it's trauma of any kind. When you look back at World War II and the veterans that came home, that were shell shocked, and you know, many of them got over it just fine, but many of them for years and years and years, right up until their death, had that trauma that affected them so badly. And trauma in general, it hurts, and it hurts for a reason. And getting past it is a hard thing to do. So you told me that you're a teacher as well. So you teach grade 9.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get a little bit silly here. What's the silliest thing that one of your students has ever done?
Well, now,
not right now, but
I've had kids. The senior prank. My sons all play football, and so I gravitate toward those guys. And so for senior prank, they decided that they would take Vaseline on my door handle. And I'm sitting there trying to open the door, and they're videotaping it like she's really not figured out that she's not going to get that door open. And so it was funny, but it was safe. And I don't mind things that make both of us laugh.
The reason I asked that is because one of the parts of understanding how to get over trauma is to understand there's good things in the world, if that makes sense. Right. So that's why I asked, because I didn't want to go too grumpy is the wrong word, but I didn't want to go too deep with the hurt. And I wanted to let people know that there's something more there if they choose to. We're at 10 minutes. Normally my interviews only go for about 12 to 15 minutes. So my next question to you, I'm going to ask you the question of the day, which is absolutely nothing to do with what you have. It's actually supposed to be the icebreaker at the beginning of the show. If you could choose to be any animal in the world, real or imagined, you can choose a fantasy animal too if you want to. But if you could choose to be any animal in the world, what animal would that be?
An eagle.
An eagle? Mm-hmm. Okay. And can you tell me why?
Because they have the innate ability to soar above everything else. Where they live and fly, no one else can live and fly. And I did some studying about eagles a while back, and they actually lose their first beak, and they almost starve to death before that their final beak is ready to use. And that speaks volumes about holding on and knowing that, you know, you're going to make it. And just the idea of catching a jet stream and just sailing on it. I mean, right into the sunset. that's idea. I mean, that's living.
You know, the whole eagle could be used as a metaphor for what you do. You help people regrow their beak, right?
Yes.
And then soar off into the sunset. Awesome. So I do want to thank you for coming on. Where can people find you online to talk to you about coaching or anything else like that?
Okay, I have a website. It's transformationspeaks.com. It's all one word. They can connect with me on Facebook if they look for Servant Leader Marlise Hardeman. I also have a group called Transformation. It's a free group. I try to do a lot of encouragement. I have a page that's called Transformation Speaks. They can catch me on Instagram at Transformation Speak 1. So I have an email. It's all Transformation Speaks. So at yahoo.com. I love connecting with people. It's not about making money. It's about helping people realize that they can move forward, that you're not stuck where you are. For a matter of fact, my coaching services, I have several women. I don't charge anything because they just needed somebody to come alongside of them and walk with them. Yep. And I understand that because that's what I needed. And if someone would have charged me for it, I never would have got it.
That makes sense. The most powerful thing you can give anyone is hope.
Yes.
It truly is. I've been in that position before. I don't look like it, but I grew up on welfare with nothing. So, and I do okay, obviously.
Yes.
So I understand that sometimes the most vulnerable in our society are the ones that need to be told and helped more than anything else. So
yes.
Before we end here, I do ask the last question I ask everybody, and because of what's going on, the societal trauma that everyone's experiencing right now, right. I ask them this question. So other than this interview, because let's face it, it's wonderful, but other than this interview, what's one thing you've done for yourself today that's made you happy? And not anybody else, you.
I love to read.
Okay. What do you read?
Anything I can get my hands on. I really enjoy because not just because of what I do, but because of where I've been. I love self-help books. I love books that encourage you to be all that you can be. And so I honestly, every day, regardless of what I'm doing, I block out an hour of time where I can just sit and read and digest something that's going to help me be a better person just for me.
That makes perfect sense. Sometimes that's just what we need to do. I do want to thank you for being on. We're at our 14-minute mark, so we're officially done. You can, holy cow, you can hear the dinging. I apologize. I do want to thank you so much for being on, Marlise.
Thank you.
One more time, your website is transformationspeaks.com.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Marlise, we end the show in a simple way. Is there anything else you got left to say?
No, I have enjoyed myself. This is light, and it was the perfect end to the day.
Well, I thank you so much. And once I get famous, I'll have you on again so we can help even more people. Thank you very much. Say bye. And we're all done.